Hey, what's up? This is Agassi here. Since it's still summer in the UK, it's still a good chance to be checking out those performance materials designed to keep you cool as opposed to ones designed for bad weather. And specifically, we're going to look at some naturally derived materials in the form of linen and ramie. For this, we're going to be focusing on a specific brand, Outlier. This is kind of their shtick, using these kinds of materials to create very lightweight, very under the radar, minimalist kind of clothing. They sent two things to facilitate this video: the Injected linen pants, made of course of linen, and the Ramielust t-shirt, as you guessed it, made of ramie. So thank you very much for that. They also sent over the Fuck It hat, which looks super cool, but a very different kind of look and to be worn in different outfits, I think, to the stuff in this video. So I'll save that for another time, but you'll probably see that popping up on Instagram and that kind of thing. Before I get too far into this video, I do want to mention that although I am talking about performance materials here, the aesthetic of these pieces is of course very different to a lot of the things that I might include on this channel. And hold your horses on that one if that's the kind of thing that you're thinking, because I will talk about that a little bit later in the video. So let's get started looking at some of these materials. First up, the Ramielust tee. This comes in at $125, which is quite a lot for a plain t-shirt. So we're going to hope for some good material performance on this thing, and luckily that is exactly what you're going to get. This t-shirt is made of ramie, and I'll forgive you if you haven't heard of that because it's a Chinese plant, so it's mostly grown and used in China. It's also quite difficult and quite expensive to make anything out of this plant, which is why you don't see it that often, certainly outside of China. But the end result is something that's not too dissimilar to linen, and for that reason it shares a lot of its advantages. It's super lightweight and it has a very open structure, which makes it feel more comfortable than cotton does, particularly in hot weather. It also gives the surface of the fabric a nice bit of texture to it, which is quite interesting up close. It has a little bit of that see-through quality that you would expect from a linen-like material, although certainly in this dark colour it doesn't look too see-through when it's on the body. I can't speak for lighter colours like a white or something, because that certainly is something that happens with linen, but I've gone for this navy colour here and it looks to be fine on me. One of the big benefits of natural fibres like this for me, particularly in hot weather, is the resistance to scent. Now, I kind of mentioned this back in the summer video. If you're opting for those artificial fabrics, the Uniqlo Airism stuff for example, you'll find that quite quickly they start to smell, but this isn't the case with this. I can confirm that. I did go on holiday a couple of weeks ago, took this t-shirt with me, wore it a couple of times in, near 30-degree weather, and I found that even after those few wears it didn't really smell, and I could continue wearing it without any issues. Whereas I feel like a artificial fabric, or even cotton of course to an extent, after a couple of wears you're gonna want to put it in the wash. And on that topic, this material does dry very quickly, so if you do happen to get a little bit sweaty, then you're not going to stay damp for ages, whereas that's certainly a disadvantage of something like cotton. Once it gets wet, you're pretty much done. Shape and sizing on this I think is pretty appropriate for a t-shirt with this kind of material. It's a little bit of a relaxed size if you go true to size, but it's not too big, it's not super baggy. And of course that's appropriate in warm weather, you don't want anything that's too close to the body. The other thing is, after washing this once, I did find that it had a little bit of shrinkage to it. It did get a tiny little bit smaller, so having that slightly relaxed fit does allow for that to occur without there being any problems. So just be aware, if this t-shirt does maybe seem a tiny little bit bigger than you would like initially, then after a wash you may well find that it gets a little bit of a better size. One downside of linen, particularly cheap linen, is that it can be quite scratchy and quite uncomfortable to wear. Initially with this t-shirt, when I put it on, I was a little bit aware of its texture. It didn't quite feel as comfortable as cotton does, but after a while, after I wore it once or twice, that did seem to go away. I don't know whether it was just the feeling of the material itself changed or whether I got used to it, but either way, after a while I stopped noticing that. Now I'd consider this a pretty comfy t-shirt, and it feels nice against the skin. It's not quite as soft as something like cotton is, but it's a little bit less sticky I feel, and it has a bit of a delicate feeling as well, which I quite like. So of course there's a limited amount of performance that one can expect from a t-shirt, but the material, the fabric here, is certainly doing a lot of work to make this an appropriate piece of clothing for warmer weather. The aesthetics of this t-shirt and of the pants as well are something that I'll talk about a little bit more towards the end of this video, but I think the very plain, the very minimal, under the radar style certainly lends itself to being worn in similarly minimalist outfits as opposed to the more tech ninja or more futuristic athletic kind of thing. So this is certainly one for where casual comfort is the priority as opposed to going out there looking like a ninja. Onto the Injected linen pants now, and these command a retail price of $200, which is in the same kind of ballpark as the t-shirt. So let's take a look at that material, the injected linen. What exactly does that mean? Linen, of course, a lightweight, breathable fabric similar to Rami in the t-shirt, but the injected part is where the technology and the innovation aspect comes in. At a very basic level, injected linen has some of the breathability and the lightweight of an open weave, i.e. something where the fibers have gaps or spaces in the middle, but with some of the opacity and some of the durability of a closed weave, which ordinarily would be much heavier and you'd lose that breathability. Outlier explained this in a lot more detail, so I'll put a link to that video down there in the description if you want to check that out. But at a very basic level, this makes the injected linen pants more durable and more opaque than something like the Ramielust t-shirt, because you don't want to have your legs or anything visible, and pants endure a lot more wear than a t-shirt does, so it's important that they've got a little bit of strength to them, but at the same time they still feel extremely comfortable in warm weather. And these are certainly my lightest weight pair of trousers, but they don't really look it from a distance. What you will see though as you get up close is the very complex texture of these pants that the injected linen gives them. They have almost like a very subtle pinstripe, and that's the effect of those injected fibers running across. And for whatever reason, something that happens quite a lot with linen, there's those little sort of pulled out parts on the material, so there's a further bit of texture being added there as well. So it really is quite a complex looking thing up close. At a distance though, you'll see that as just a very light pattern, which I think helps with its premium look. I think if you're having everything a very solid color, it can make trousers like this look a little bit cheap. Similar to the t-shirt, this is a relaxed cut. It's quite a straight fit as well, so it lends itself nicely to a more relaxed, casual summer outfit. Because of that very relaxed looking linen fabric as well, these look quite good rolled up because it gives them a kind of slouchy look, and again that's going to make them even nicer for warm weather because you can just get a little bit of heat escaping from those ankles. For a good example of how to wear these, I actually included an outfit with these pants in the summer tech wear video quite a few weeks back, and that one was by Tempura, and what he did was keep that very casual, relaxed kind of style that we talked about, but then mixing it up with some Rick Owens tech runners to bring a little bit of that more futuristic aesthetic to the table as well. And I think that sort of combo actually worked surprisingly well. Together, I think these two pieces work pretty well. The colors are going nicely together there with the blue and the gray. It's a little bit softer, a bit less harsh than wearing black stuff. And the relaxed fits work together nicely with the material to just create that look which looks very effortless and casual. And while that's a little bit different to what I would normally wear, it's certainly something that I'd feel very comfortable going out in. But as I mentioned earlier, I do want to talk about the aesthetic of these. Are these really tech wear? They do certainly look very different to what you might typically associate with techwear. What techwear is exactly is perhaps a topic for another video, but in terms of material appropriateness for the environment, then this kind of stuff is going to do the job pretty well, certainly in hot weather. It's difficult to argue that these things really fit into any kind of a futuristic or a cyberpunk kind of aesthetic, and a lot of people do associate that quite strongly with techwear. Although if you take a bit of a wider context, a bit of a general urban wear sort of thing, as opposed to rural or hiking performance gear, then this kind of clothing does have its place in a similar way to the Arc'teryx Surveillance kind of grey man aesthetic, very under the radar, very minimal and not necessarily noticeable. You're not going to stand out wearing this stuff, but behind that very plain aesthetic, very plain looks, there is performance kind of hidden there. And with this kind of clothing, you're also looking at casual menswear type outfits, but ones where you do have a little bit of material performance injected in there. So yes, you might look like your hashtag menswear brethren, but if you go out there in hot weather, you're going to be a little bit more comfy than those guys are. It's hard to forget about those premium prices here, particularly when on this channel and in techwear generally, a lot of the pieces are very visually unique, or they have very obvious performance features or futuristic stuff that you might not find on other clothing in terms of those bits of functionality. Those kinds of things aren't present here, but if you don't want to attract attention to yourself, you do want to go under the radar, but still keep some comfortable performance aspects, then that's where clothing like this does start to come in and where it becomes very, very effective. That might not be for you, and these clothes might be too minimal for you considering the price, but for overall comfort, performance, quality, and things that are made within the USA, then Outlier are certainly to be kept in mind, at least for these warmer months. Something that I want to mention though, and something which fixes that problem of these clothes perhaps being too minimalist, is their experiments line. This is where they change things up a little bit in terms of their cuts, and they produce some much more overt, much more interesting looking things. For example, something that I only just came across was there's a cargo pant version of the injected linen pants. So if you're thinking that the material and the comfort of that sounds really good, but maybe they're just a little bit too minimalist, then check out the cargo pant version, because they've stuck some pockets on there as well, and it's a little bit more of an interesting look. And the fuck it hat is also part of that experiments line, as is a whole bunch of other stuff which just breaks the mold and does things a little bit differently to their mainline stuff. And I think for a lot of you guys who are very interested in those aesthetics and doing things a little bit differently to the norm, then that's going to be of interest to you as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at some of these performance materials. They're certainly going to be super useful in the summer. So if you are struggling with the heat, then consider looking into this kind of thing. So that is everything. If you enjoyed the video, please do leave it a like, it's super appreciated. And thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Shout out to Kyle, I forgot to mention the footwear that was teased with the MMW collection. I don't think it's releasing at the same time, but it might be happening at some point. And they actually look really nice, so I could be tempted by that for sure. And shout out Mulfi, I'm always on the lookout for more affordable stuff, so the next couple of videos, they should have things that have like a range of different prices in, so keep an eye out for that stuff. If you enjoyed this video, you want to catch some more, there might be some links going up there if I remember, and if you want to subscribe, you want to catch some more things that come up in the future, then hit the little button there and subscribe forever.